Hello guys, today we are going through effects of changes in income and prices on consumer equilibrium. We have changes in income. If a consumer income increases, then the consumer will be able to purchase higher combination of goods. Hence, an increase in income will result in a shift in the budget line. The prices of the two goods have remained the same. Therefore, the increase in income will result in a parallel shift in the budget line. Assume consumer income increased to 15 shillings. So now you can buy more quantities of both goods. Increase in income. An increase in income makes the purchase of more of either one or both items possible. If a consumer income falls, then there would be a corresponding parallel shift to the left to represent a fall in the potential combination of the two goods that can be purchased. Now suppose the consumer income falls to 9 shillings. Fall in income. A decrease in income makes the purchase of less of either one or both items possible. Then we move to price. An increase in price of one good will make the consumer buy less of the good and buy more of the other. This consecutively changes the equilibrium of the consumer and raises it higher. Derivation of demand curve. Derivation of the consumer's demand curve, which is stroke or normal goods. The price consumption curve traces the effect of a change in price of a good on its quantity demanded. It shows the relationship between price of a good and its quantity demanded. We have figure below. We have derivation of a demand curve of a normal curve. The upper part of the figure 1 shows price effect where good X is a normal good. AB is the initial price line. Suppose the initial price of good X, which is P of X, is OP. E is the initial optimal consumption combination on indifference curve U. The consumer buys OX units of good X when the price of X, P of subscript X, falls to, say, OP1, the budget constraint shifts to AB1. The optimal consumption combination is E1 on indifference curve U1. The consumer now increases consumption of good X from OX to OX1 units. The price consumption curve is rising upwards. Chart 1 shows the demand relationship derived from the price consumption curve. We have chart 1 where we have 3 columns. The first column is the first column is nothing on top. The second column there is price of good X. The third column is quantity demanded. Then we have 2 rows. The first row is the initial price and quantity of good X fall in price. The second row is corresponding quantity demanded. So we have OP, OX, OP1, OX1. At initial price OP1, quantity demanded of good X is OX, is shown by point A. At lower price OP1, quantity demanded increases to OX1, is shown by point B. DD1 is the demand curve obtained by joining points A and B. The demand curve is downward sloping, showing inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, as good X is a normal good. Derivation of consumer demand curve given goods. Figure 2 derivation of demand curve inferior good. Inferior good is the same as given goods. We have units of good Y. We have two graphs. When price of X, OPX, falls to say OP1, the budget constraint shifts to AB1. The optimal consumption combination is E1 on indifference curve U1. The consumer now reduces consumption of good X from OX to OX1 units as good X is inferior. The price consumption curve is rising upward and bending backwards toward the y-axis. Then we have the same, we have two columns and two rows. We have the first column is for price of good X, the second column is for quantity demanded of good X. The first row is for initial price and quantity of good X, which we have OP and OX, and we have the second column fall in price and quantity demanded. We have OP1 and OX1. Initial price OP1 quantity demanded of good X is OX, is shown by point A. Lower price OP1 quantity demanded decreases to OX1, is shown by point B. DD1 is the demand curve obtained by joining points A and B. The demand curve is upward sloping, showing direct relationship between price and quantity demanded as good X is an inferior good. Derivation of the consumer's demand curve. Neutral goods. We have two curves there. Then explanation. When price of X P subscript X falls to say OP subscript 1, the budget constraint shift to AB subscript 1. The optimal consumption combination is E subscript 1 on the indifference curve U subscript 1, at which consumer buys same OX unit of good X as it is a neutral good. The price consumption curve is a vertical straight line. Chart 3, you have a chart there. You have two columns, two rows. The first column is for price of good X. The second column is for quantity demanded of X. We have the first row, which is initial price and quantity of good X, which we have OP and OX. Fall in price, and the second row is fall in price and corresponding quantity demanded. We have OP subscript 1 and OX subscript 1. Initial price OP quantity demanded of good X is OX, is shown by A. Oh, it is OX, not OX1. Lower price OP1 quantity demanded remain fixed at OX, is shown by B. DD1 is demand curve obtained by joining points A and B. Demand curve is a straight line showing consumption of good X is fixed. It is a neutral good. Yeah, for example, salt is a neutral good. Application of indifference curve analysis. We have substitution effect and income effect. The substitution effect is one component of the effect of a change in the price of a good upon the amount of that good demanded by a consumer, the other being the income effect. The effect of the relative price change is called the substitutional effect, while the effect due to income having been freed up is called the income effect. If income is altered in response to the price change such that a new budget line is drawn passing through the old consumption bundle but with a slope determined by the new prices and the consumer's optimal choice is on this budget line, the resulting change is called the Slasky substitution effect. The idea is that the consumer is given enough money to purchase a whole bundle of the new prices and a choice changes are seen. If instead a new budget line is found with the slope determined by the new prices but tangent to the indifference curve going through the old bundle, the difference between the new point of tangency and the old bundle is the Hayek substitution effect. The idea now is that the consumer is given just enough income to achieve a whole utility at the new price, and how a choice changes is seen. The same concept also applies if the price of one good goes up instead of down, with the substitution effect reflecting the change in the relative prices and the income effect reflecting the fact that the income has been soaked up into additional spending on the retained units of the now pricier goods. Move to graphical. They have the graphical analysis. The move from A to C can be decomposed into two parts. The substitution effect is the change that would occur if the consumer were required to remain on the original indifference curve. This is the move from A to B. The income effect is the simultaneous move from B to C that occurs because the lower price of one good in fact allows movement to a higher indifference curve. Y is an inferior good. Then we move to inferior and given goods. The substitution effect always acts in such a way that when the relative price of a good falls, into bracket real income remaining constant, more of it is purchased. The income, however, can work either way. When the consumer real income rises, more or less of good X may be bought. If less is bought, the good is said to be an inferior good. If the consumer buys less and the income effect is actually bigger than the substitution effect, so that the overall effect of the price fall is a decrease in consumption, then the good is said to be a given good. Inferior good is the negative income effect is smaller than the substitution effect. The given good, the negative income effect is bigger than the substitution effect, so that the net effect of a fall in price of X is a fall in quantity demanded. Uses of indifference curve analysis indicate the amount of income and leisure combination that can yield a given level of satisfaction, allowing for the measure of trade-off between leisure and income. Since each indifference curve represents a given level of welfare in an indifference map, the curve to the right represents a higher level of welfare. This is useful in analyzing the effect of taxation on the standard of living in an economy. A tax level may reduce the income standard of the people and vice versa. Theories of demand and supply and consumer behavior. Employers use indifference curve analysis to decide whether to give employees housing facility in kind or in money allowance in a manner not to affect their welfare. Then we move to the Angel's curve. Do you know what is an angel curve? Please, if you know, please type there at the comment. Please share it with us. As we proceed, an angel curve describes how a consumer's purchases of a good like food varies as the consumer's total resources such as income or total expenditure vary. Angel curve may also depend on demographic variables and other consumer characteristics. A good angel curve determines its income elasticity and hence whether the good is an inferior, normal or luxury good. Empirical angel curves are close to linear for some goods and highly nonlinear for others. Angel curves are used for equivalence, scale calculation, and related welfare comparison and determine properties of demand systems such as aggregability and rank. And below you have two graphs, an income effect curve which has two diagonals, straight line, and three curves, indifference curves. Then we have the second curve which we have a slanted line looking like a curve. Then we move on to consumer surplus. Do you know what is a consumer surplus? Please, if you know, please share it with us on the comment section, and we will be glad as we proceed on to the next, which is consumer surplus is the difference between the maximum price of a consumer is willing to pay and the actual price they do pay. The aggregate consumer surplus is the sum of the consumer surplus for all individual consumers. The maximum amount a consumer would be willing to pay for a given quantity of a good is the sum of the maximum price they would pay for the first unit. The lower maximum price would be willing to pay for the second unit, etc. Typically, these prices are decreasing. The consumer surplus is highest at the largest number of units, for which, even for the last unit, the maximum willingness to pay is not below the market prices. And from there, we have finished for today. Please subscribe, comment, and like. Adios.